I've talked to a lot of individuals on this podcast, including scientists, spiritual leaders, skeptics, fighters, and monks. However, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and the issue that keeps coming up is, why are Muslims so highly respected? I'm not referring to political headlines or media noise when I say that people have a profound underlying affection for Muslims, even if they don't express it aloud. And it boils down to something real, in my opinion. It is about how they live, how they move, and how stable they are. It requires a crazy level of discipline. And without complaining, they do it each year. They claim that it purifies their souls, clears their minds, and strengthens their bonds with God. And to be honest, it's hard not to admire someone who does so voluntarily and enthusiastically. Control on a whole new level. They pray 5 times a day, every day, as you can see. It makes no difference if you're in the middle of a business meeting, a party, or a battleground. They pray when the time comes. They also don't give a damn about who is looking. These days it's uncommon to find someone with that level of spiritual dedication and devotion to something greater than themselves. Even sticking to a morning routine is difficult for most people. This brotherhood comes next. They are connected to one another in an unspoken way. When 2 Muslims from different parts of the world are placed in the same room, they instantly feel united and connected. Like a tribe, it is founded entirely on beliefs rather than race or social standing. They are admired because of this. No fake superficial bonding exists. It's deeper. They gather in mosques in great numbers, young and old, wealthy and poor, and on an equal footing. That has a lot of power. That is the mark of true unity. Muslims remain united in a society where labels and echo chambers divide people. And the way they handle family, man. That really got to me. When it comes to family, they don't play. Your mother is precious. Your father is well liked. Elders are respected. It's like entering an old school world where morals are still important. The Prophet Muhammad actually stated that paradise is located at your mother's feet. That is a code, rather than just poetry. A culture that makes protecting and loving your family your life's work. How could you not find that admirable? Especially when everyone else is avoiding their parents and trying to get influence online. You notice that practicing Muslims have a stony calm. It's difficult to describe. It seems as though they have given in to something bigger. They have faith in patience, divine timing, and destiny. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God, is their response when you throw pandemonium at them. Who does that? Even in pain, who gives gratitude to God? That isn't a sign of weakness. That's mental toughness. That's peace on a warrior level. They don't use drugs, drink, or hook up with strangers. Just strength, focus, and clarity. In a dopamine-dependent society, people dismiss temptation as insignificant. That is true strength. They don't follow fashions. They follow their faith, not the world. The hijab, beard, modesty. They remain unflinching even when the world makes fun of them. That isn't soul-selling. Even if they don't understand it, people respect that because we all want to stand for something. What about Muslims? They do. Man, let's not overlook the past. Islam has existed for more than 1400 years. It is still here, stronger than ever, having withstood colonization, subjugation, and conflict. Why? Since it is based on an eternal principle. It's not advertising. It's not a hype. It's true. It appeals to the soul of man. What I've observed is that, despite its dread of the unknown, the world secretly respects it. And I believe that's what's happening with Muslims. They don't give up, even if they are misinterpreted, misrepresented, or condemned. They simply continue to live their truth. And oddly enough, that quiet, that resilience, that patience, it shouts more loudly than words can. We know who we are, it states. We don't require your consent. And that energy, that fire within, legends are created of things like that. So yeah, maybe people don't say it out loud. Maybe the media never shows it. But if you slow down, really watch how Muslims move through life, you'll see it. You'll feel it. The discipline, the dignity, the devotion, the love for family, the loyalty, the calm, the purpose. And that's why, in a world spinning with chaos and no anchors, people look at Muslims and think, man, they've got something real. Even if they don't say it, even if they don't fully get it. That's why there's this deep respect. And here's the wild part, man. The more you explore it, the more it hits you. Muslims aren't just living by some rules or rituals. They're walking through the same pressure, distractions, temptations, but they're grounded.
In a world where people trade everything for comfort, their bodies, their values, their peace, all for a few likes, a bit of attention, a quick hit of fame. These people, they've got something older, something coded into their being that says, I'm not here for likes, I'm here for legacy. I'm not chasing claps, I'm chasing the eternal. That kind of focus, that's spiritual GPS. And when you meet someone who actually lives it, not just says it, it shakes you. You can feel the calm in their energy, a kind of fire that doesn't burn loud but never goes out. They're not trying to convince you. They're not preaching. They just live in a way that makes you pause and question your own chaos. That's not just inspiring, that's magnetic. I've sat with imams, with scholars, even with regular guys working 9 to 5, raising families who still pray 5 times a day and live clean. And they're not out here flexing holiness. They're humble. They're honest. They'll tell you straight up, I'm far from perfect. I fall, but I get up for God. And that kind of raw honesty, that mix of humility and inner strength, it stays with you. It makes you pause, makes you look at yourself and ask, man, what am I really doing with my time? Because here's the truth. Most people today are starving spiritually. They've got all the stuff, the money, the status, the fame, the gadgets, the tech, the lifestyle, everything that's supposed to make them feel full. But inside, still empty, still searching. And then you look at Muslims. They've got God. That's their center. That's what they return to every single day. And when you have that, you can walk through fire and still come out in peace. That's the kind of spiritual protection people are craving right now. They just don't know where to find it. And you know what else hits me every time? Their generosity. Zakat, that built-in practice of giving part of your earnings away each year, no matter what. It's not just a suggestion. It's not give if you're feeling inspired. It's a responsibility. You earn, you give. Period. That kind of mindset, that's what holds communities together. They feed the hungry, support the orphaned, uplift the struggling. And they don't do it for clout. They don't blast it all over social media. They do it silently, with sincerity, because it's for God, not the algorithm, because for them, it's never about attention. It's not for followers or likes or applause. It's about God, pure and simple. And that kind of sincerity, you can't fake it. People feel it, even those outside the faith. You don't have to be Muslim to witness that level of selflessness and think, yeah, that's real. And man, let's talk about something that's often misunderstood, the women. You hear a lot of noise in the media, all these narratives about oppression. But sit down, actually have a conversation with Muslim women, and it flips everything you thought you knew. They're some of the most sharp, confident, spiritually rooted individuals you'll ever meet. They're articulate, they're fierce, and they're grounded in something way deeper than what the world expects. The hijab? It's not forced. It's devotion. It's a choice. It's a form of empowerment that the modern West still can't wrap its head around because they've confused freedom with exposure. But these women, they're saying, I don't need to show my body to show my worth. I define myself by my character, my values, my soul. That's a whole new level of confidence. That's what real empowerment looks like. And even though they face hate, judgment, and stereotypes, they keep walking, head held high, with grace, with quiet strength. That's power, bro. Not loud, not showy, just solid, unshakable. And if you want to really see love in action, go to a Muslim wedding. It's not about getting drunk or showing off who spent the most. It's about family. It's about prayer. It's about a community coming together to honor something sacred. You walk into an Eid celebration and it's everywhere. People dressed in their best, hugging, smiling, feeding the poor, visiting the sick. It's not just a festive day, it's a movement of humanity. And let me tell you, something hit me deep. When someone passes away in the Muslim world, the way they respond is unlike anything I've ever seen. The whole community shows up. There are no empty gestures. The prayers are heartfelt. The grief feels holy. And yet, there's peace. Because for them, death isn't the end. It's the return to the Creator. And that kind of belief, it gives life depth. It gives every moment a weight that matters. It makes you step back and realize these people aren't just surviving. They're living with meaning. Everything they do, from what they eat to what they wear to how they speak, how they spend, how they raise their kids, it's all connected to something bigger. That's why they don't get lost in the noise. That's why they're not swayed by trends or headlines. They've got this internal compass that keeps them centered. And bro, in a world where people are desperate for something real, that kind of direction, that's a rare kind of power. That's why people are drawn to them. Not because the world says they should be admired, but because the soul knows when it sees something eternal. It's instinct. It's recognition without words. And that's why, quietly, consistently, they're loved. Sure, people can twist the story. They can point out the extremes. They can take the worst examples and make them the headline. They can distort the faith to fit their narrative. But the truth, the real truth, you can't bury it. Because it's not just written on pages. It's written in lives, in how Muslims live, breathe, move, and serve. Every single day, every single year, silently, consistently, with bold, steady faith. And honestly, man, if more people spent real time with practicing Muslims, in their homes, sitting beside them at the dinner table, watching them pray in mosques, they'd walk away changed. With a whole new understanding of what real strength looks like, what grounded peace feels like, what true devotion actually is. Because these people, they're not just believing in God, they're living like they see Him, not just on Fridays, not just when life gets hard, but every single day, every breath. And that can't be faked. That's why the respect is real. That's why, even when they're misrepresented, they're never truly dismissed. Because when you live for something eternal, you become timeless. And the more I pay attention, man, the more I get it. This isn't just about faith or rituals. It's a whole mindset, a way of being that most of the modern world has forgotten. Muslims didn't just hold on to traditions, they held on to rhythm, a rhythm that syncs your daily life with something far greater than yourself. And that hits different. Think about it. You don't wake up before dawn to grind. You don't reach for your phone the moment your eyes open. You wake up to pray. In the middle of work, deadlines, or traffic, you pause everything, not for a break, not for social media, but to turn toward the one who created you. Who still does that in today's world? Who lives with that kind of alignment, that kind of spiritual awareness? While everything else is spinning out of control, Muslims do. And that's not just willpower. That's sacred discipline. That's spiritual precision. That's a soul on a schedule with the divine. 5 times a day, every day, you realign, you reset. And bro, that kind of intentional living, it rewires you. You start seeing things with clarity. You detach from the chaos, from the noise, from the pressure to chase things that don't even matter. That's what people are starving for. Not more productivity, not more dopamine, peace. And Muslims, they walk with it. Because they're not looking around for answers. They're looking above and within. And let me tell you something that left a mark on me. The way they raise their kids. I've met young Muslims who speak with more calm, more wisdom, more emotional intelligence than people twice their age. And it's because they're raised on something deeper. From early on, they're taught about purpose, patience, accountability. They're memorizing divine words. They're taught to serve others, to honor their parents, to lead with kindness. And the best part? They're not walking around feeling deprived. They're not craving what the world thinks they're missing. That's powerful, man. In a time where young people feel lost and restless, you've got a community raising kids with backbone. Not perfect, but rooted. Not flawless, but intentional. And when you look at all of this, it's no wonder Islam keeps growing. Because it's not just a belief system. It's a shelter, a map, a way of living that brings sense to a world that feels senseless. And you know what blows my mind? It doesn't need a facelift. It's not trying to trend. It's not bending to stay relevant. It just is, unapologetically. And that kind of realness, that's what people gravitate toward. Because deep down, you can feel when something's true. You can feel when someone believes what they live. And Muslims, they believe. You see it in how they carry themselves. You hear it in the way they speak. There's no act, no performance. It's built into them. And even when they stumble, they come back. They seek forgiveness. They own it. They realign. It's not about being flawless. It's about walking the path with humility. That's the part people miss. It's not a performance. It's a process. It's not about pretending to be holy. It's about being honest enough to admit you're trying. That's why there's this quiet strength in how Muslims walk through life. Because they know. They're tethered to something higher. And I've seen it firsthand. People who walked away from Islam. People who found it later in life. Even people who didn't know anything about it. Until they saw a real Muslim. Just being who they are. Praying silently in an airport. Helping someone on the street without a camera. Carrying themselves with dignity in a loud, chaotic world. And they couldn't shake it. They were like, whatever that is, I need that in my life. Because it speaks right to the soul. And let's be real. The world today, the soul is starving. Starving for truth, for meaning, for something that doesn't change with every headline. And Muslims, they're feeding that hunger. Not with noise, not with buzzwords, but with how they live, how they show up, how they serve. And let's talk about pain. Bro, I've seen Muslims lose everything. Family, homes, jobs, peace. And still whisper, Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. And to most people, that's wild. You're thanking God when your world is falling apart? But to them, it's not crazy. It's faith. It's surrender. It's knowing life isn't random. It's a test. And every trial has meaning. That mindset, it flips everything. It turns pain into purpose, loss into growth, and chaos into clarity. It turns grief into growth, pain into something meaningful. That's not weakness. That's real strength, spiritual strength. That's what makes them unshakable. And it's not just the deeply religious ones. Even cultural Muslims, you can feel that same fire in them. It's in how they walk, how they stay loyal, how they protect their own. That kind of bond, that kind of I got you no matter what energy, that's rare, man. And the rest of the world, they're starving for it. And here's something that might sound strange. But Muslims, they know how to die. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But hear me out. Most people today live like they'll never leave this world. They chase highs. They run from pain. They distract themselves to forget they're mortal. But Muslims, they remember. Every single day. It's built into the prayers, into their mindset. Not in a dark, depressing way, but in a clear, empowering way. Like, I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, so I'm going to live right today. That kind of awareness, that kind of fire, it sharpens you. It clears the fog. You stop wasting time. You stop chasing empty stuff. You start living fully. And you aim to leave nothing behind. That's the kind of purpose that shapes legacies. And that's why people admire them, even if they never say it out loud. Because in a world that's loud with noise, they move in silence. In a world that's obsessed with appearances, they live with authenticity. In a world paralyzed by fear, they walk with faith. And yeah, they've got flaws like anyone else. They stumble. They fall. But the foundation, that's built on something eternal. And people feel that. even if they can't explain it. That's why you can't erase Islam. You can't mute that kind of truth. Because it's not just tied to the past, it's anchored in forever. And that kind of connection, that's what the world longs for, even if it pretends not to. That's why Muslims are respected in this deep, quiet, almost unspoken way. And honestly, man, when you slow down and really look, when you go past the noise and see what's underneath, you realize something powerful. Islam isn't just a religion. It's not just a list of do's and don'ts. It's an anchor, a way to ground the soul in a world that keeps trying to tear it apart. And Muslims? They're not out here turning faith into a show. They're not selling spirituality for likes. They're living it, steadily, sincerely, moment to moment, without chasing approval, without needing applause. And that right there, that's where the strength comes from. Because ask yourself, how many people do you know who are actually consistent anymore? We live in a time where values shift like trends, where convictions get traded for clout, where people believe in something one day and ditch it the next just because the algorithm flipped. But Muslims, they stay the course in how they speak, what they eat, how they treat people, how they walk through the world, how they love, how they raise children, how they run businesses. It's all connected to something bigger. It's all rooted in faith. And that kind of alignment, that kind of steady integrity is rare. But people see it, even if they don't say anything, even if they act like it doesn't matter. They're watching, and deep down, they notice. Here's a people who haven't lost themselves. And in a time when so many are wandering in circles, that kind of direction, that kind of clarity, it pulls people in. That's what makes it magnetic.